Hi, my name is Chris, aka The Philosopher's Games, or TPH Games as my little games channel here is called, and it's time for another Cyberpunk 2077 mod showcase video. Besides Cyberpunk getting many patches which also added new content and features officially to the game, also the modding community developed further, and also their tools with this new possibilities emerged, and I want to showcase some classic mods and also some new mods that are very interesting and change the game quite a bit. Of course, there are also classic highlights like the Hotdog Bike with Cheeseburger wheels and the wobbler. I think it is not getting better than that, just to reduce your expectations here a bit. Also keep in mind there is another mod showcase video I made in the past already, though this was quite some time ago. In it there's for example still the Metro mod, and the Metro became an actual feature of the game, so it is not needed anymore. In addition, there's also a tutorial video how to install mods from Nexus Mods using Vortex, and a list with all the mods I use or would recommend. Everything is linked in the description. I know, very long intro and disclaimer, so let us start with the first mod. Cyber Vehicle Overhaul by Arok. A lot of people complain in Cyberpunk about the car handling, and this mod changes this. At least for most of the cars in the game. There's also a DLC pack for the DLC cars as well, and what this mod does is basically it changes the handling of almost every car in the game, and for this the modder created a fine-tuning for each car, so to say, and every car is basically in a separate tweak file. And for example, if you dislike how the modder modified a certain car, then you can just delete the file. Let's say you don't like how he modded the Caliburn, then you can just delete the Rayfield Caliburn tweak.lua in the modules folder, and then it is vanilla again. In addition, what is also very cool about this mod, you can also go into the .lua file and tweak it further manually to your liking. I also made a tutorial video about this, so if you're interested, check that out. And this gives you just a lot of control what the mod does. When it comes to the actual car handling changes of the mod, I would say that cars become quite a bit faster in this mod, so you have to like this idea. But at the same time, they control a lot better. It is less like they are driving on soap and the cars are constantly sliding and so on. I feel like overall the mod does a pretty good job. While some cars have this characteristic to slide a lot, and this is also still in the mods. I would say the mod does a good job at giving you better handling while at the same time maintaining some of the car characteristics like of these muscle cars. Of course, you could also dislike the changes or don't like the idea. Then there are some alternatives to this, for example the Better Vehicle Handling mod, which is an ini mod, and it changes basically some general behavior that affects all cars. I think same with a mod called Gripped Up. Those are maybe interesting alternatives if you don't like Cyber Vehicle Overhaul. Computer Anywhere by Deceptious. This mod is another one of the category should be in the base game. What it does is you basically hold shift, then a little menu pops up, it says use computer, you confirm it, and then a little animation plays and V gets out his tablet and you can enter the internet. So you have computer access anywhere as long as you are not holding a weapon or are in combat, I think. You find the exact conditions on the description page. I really like about this mod that it has a cool little animation when V gets his tablet out, and also it is compatible with the browser extension framework. So Virtual Car Dealer, Virtual Atelier also work from there, and also the Stock Market mod works from there because the tabs on top are also supported. If it doesn't work, probably for whatever reason, there's also an alternative for it called Carrying Laptop. This is a Cyber Engine Tweaks mod, and you can bind it to a specific key, and it will most likely work as long as Cyber Engine Tweaks works, so it's pretty robust against patches. So a pretty cool alternative for that. Shoutouts to Prius 310L. Keep in mind that for the Carrying Laptop to work, you have to assign it to a key over Cyber Engine Tweaks bindings. Lean Anywhere and Sit Anywhere by Nexus Guy 999. Another classic immersion mod that in my opinion should also be part of the base game, at least sit anywhere. What it does is it allows you to sit on almost any chair or bench or whatever that is in the game, and also lean at any railing in the game. You get the prompt for sitting or leaning when you scan a chair or a railing. It adds a very, let's call it, simple functionality to the game, but what it does is you see a chair and it's not just decoration, you can now actually do something with it, even though you might not use this much. But with this, Night City is less decoration and more interactable. I really like these mods that don't change the gameplay a lot, but add some kind of immersion to it by just adding a very simple idea to the game. Idle Anywhere by Deceptious. I would have added it to the Sit and Lean Anywhere section, but this mod is by a different modder, so it gets its own section. But what I said there at the end also applies to this mod. It should be a base game functionality almost, and what it does is it allows you to smoke if you so desire, drink and eat when V is idling. It works similar to Computer Anywhere, so you have to hold the shift key when you have no weapon in your hand and are not in combat and so on. And then a menu opens and you can select what you do there. If you eat something or drink, you also get the buffs applied, which is pretty cool. So you can eat and drink something without fumbling with the backpack menu and searching for your item there. Immersive Delamain by Synonym. Since patch 2.3 you can now call the Delamain cap and it drives you somewhere, which is a pretty cool feature and is connected to the auto drive. This mod now enhances this experience quite a bit. It adds new voice lines to the Delamain taxi, so it makes it more interesting, which are also taken from the quest lines and so on. And it makes the cap bulletproof, so you can't take damage when you are inside, which is, in my opinion, very lore-friendly or lore-accurate. Also, if you enter the taxi, you have to interact with its socket port like you do in the heist mission in Act 1 of the game. So it adds this little animation and makes it more immersive. Also, when you're in combat and enter Delamain, you rush Delamain to drive and skip this socket port interaction, which is also pretty cool. Virtual Car Dealer by DJ Kovrik. You will most likely not get around this mod if you want to add custom cars to the game that are not replacements. There are some mods that just replace existing cars in the game, but with this mod you can buy mod vehicles, cars, motorcycles and so on in the game, and you have to pay for it, so they are integrated into the game well. When you buy them, you can summon them like the other cars you can vanilla buy in the game and use them just like those cars as well. This mod does not add any custom cars to the game by itself, so you have to look out for those on Nexus mods, and often under requirements you see if a car is compatible with Virtual Car Dealer because it's listed as a requirement there. I think the most important vehicle you need to add to the game is definitely the Hotdog Bike with Cheeseburger wheels. You can access the Virtual Car Dealer shop page from any computer in the game. For example, in V's apartment, there's a little tab saying Virtual Car Dealer by default, except, and I would definitely recommend that, you install the browser extension, which requires the browser extension framework. With this, you have on your browser main page a little icon or app or whatever you want to call it that says Virtual Car Dealer, and from there you can access it then. The advantage of this is that if you have too many of these additional functionality added to your computer, it won't fit completely on the screen anymore. So it's, I think, better to integrate this into this browser window. In this context, also shoutouts to the browser extension framework and R457 who developed that. Virtual Atelier by Pacings. This mod is very similar to Virtual Car Dealer, just for clothes and equipment. By default, all this mod does is it adds a tab to the computer, like Virtual Car Dealer. You click on it and then it opens a page. And in this page, by default there's nothing. You have to install other mods that fill this page, that use basically Virtual Atelier. For example, you can add a weapons shop to it, Second Amendment for example, and this allows you to buy all kinds of weapons in the game. This is a convenience feature, so the weapons in the shop are probably priced like in the base game as well, and you can just go there and buy something. You don't have to check 10 weapon dealers and reload all the time to get the right weapons there. I think the ability to add a shop that sells you basically all vanilla clothes that exist in the game in one place is the biggest selling point for this mod. There are also modders who add new custom clothes to the game, plus a shop that will be then also added into Virtual Atelier. For example, check out the Zenitech stuff by Scorpion Tank. Also keep in mind that there are all kinds of shop mods for Virtual Atelier, also cheat shops which might help you to try something out because everything there just costs an eddy. Also, like Virtual Car Dealer, Virtual Atelier is also compatible with the browser extension framework, so you get it as a little icon. Also, if you want this little extra bit of immersion at the cost of convenience, then there's also Virtual Atelier Delivery. This adds basically a delivery time and you have to go to drop points in the game to pick up your order, and it takes some days for it to be delivered. Shoutouts to DJ Kovrik for making that one. Sheng Noods Ramenshop by Chaosian. I hope I pronounced that correctly. This mod adds a ramen shop to the world, and that's basically all it does. What is very impressive is how well it fits into the world and how well it is designed, especially if you consider that this is like the first mod of the modder here, and that's really impressive work, I think, using World Builder here. And this is very nice to see because World Builder was just released in April 2025, I think, and it's a powerful modding tool, and it's nice to see that new modders use it to bring awesome things to the game now. And I think we will see many new interesting locations added to Night City in the future. In the case of this ramen shop, I was so impressed by the work, and I think it looks so beautiful and fits so perfectly into the world that I definitely wanted to highlight here and hope that it might get some additional downloads due to this. Besides being a well-designed and beautiful looking location, you can also buy actual things in it. There are vendors in it, there's a place to sit down and meditate and so on. So a very cool addition to the game. Inside the NCART Station by Titus MD. The name of the mod describes the functionality of it pretty accurately. You can now enter the NCART stations and use the metro from there. But in addition, the vanilla way of interacting with the NCART stations is also unchanged and still there. So you have both. And it's a purely immersive mod, so if you just want to use the NCART station to fast travel, you can still do this. If you want to enter the metro directly from the entrance, you can still do this. But you can now also enter the actual station and walk around inside it, and also when you reach the track, there you can also enter the metro or even fast travel from there as well. What I like about this mod is that you have all the options. You can use it like you are used to in vanilla, but you can also immerse yourself, enter the station, explore it a bit. Of course, some stations, because they have like a weird positioning in the world, the modder had to be very creative to get you from all the way up to all the way down. But you will see it. Overall, I think it's a well done mod and very nice to see that additional locations are added to the world. The next 4 mods I want to showcase are a personal highlight for me and have a strong synergy with each other. The package of all 4 mods combined adds a lot of chaos to the game, so you have to decide for yourself if you want that, else you can just leave out some of them. The 4 mods I'm talking about are Reinforcements System by Phoenicia 4, Reinforcements Gang vs Gang by The Real Gibbon, Night City Alive by Katana 1991, and They Will Remember by Eris 404. We start with a reinforcement system. This mod allows all the gangs in the game to call for backup when you are fighting the gangs. And each gang also has their own characteristics. You can find that on the description page of the mod. So when you fight a gang member, let's say of the Scavs, a classic, then you will see a phone call icon pop up above their head at some point, and if this runs through, they have successfully called reinforcements, and then if you wait, reinforcements arrive and the fight might escalate further. Under the hood there is a heat level. It also considers your street cred, and in addition there's also a gang bounty that I think persists, so that at some point, if you have killed enough enemies, even one gang member can summon a pretty sizable force. But the idea is that the longer you fight, the stronger the enemies you get will be. Which makes fighting gangs actually quite dangerous. Especially on their own turf, which benefits the gangs of course, and increases their heat level faster. As you can imagine, this mod adds quite a bit of chaos to the game, and it can also be annoying, so consider this when you install the mod. And consider also that with this mod you have to think through if you really want to fight a gang, because it might result in a very prolonged fight or you have to escape. But another cool thing about this mod is that it's highly customizable, so in the mod settings you can adjust all the sliders and timings to fine-tune your experience a little bit more. And now we add a little bit more chaos with reinforcements gang versus gang. This mod was developed to expand on reinforcement system. It's not a hard requirement to have reinforcement system for it, but it's highly recommended. As the name suggests, this mod allows that gangs fighting each other can also call backup like with the other mod when they fight you. For this they also have their own heat system and systems. You can also highly customize this mod in the settings. And there are some measures taken that the fights don't escalate in an endless loop of fighting. Though you can in theory also deactivate that. This mod is almost like an immersion mod. It's independent from the player in a way. You see two gangs fighting each other and you can just sit back, relax and see what is happening there. And it's cool to see that the game does something without the player and that there seems to be actual gang life in the background besides standing randomly around in some dark corners. The NCPD is also its own gang and can also call for backup, so if the police fight some gang, they call for backup and you hear the sirens in the background coming closer to this place, and then things escalate further and further. That's pretty cool to see, though it adds of course chaos and it can also be annoying in some situations, but it definitely makes the world feel more alive. I think this is a really cool mod to have. It moves the game from predictable scripted events to something dynamic and random, and that is pretty cool and definitely adds to the immersion and to the feeling that the world is actually alive. As said, both mods are also compatible with each other. But what happens if we add now even more chaos? Night City Alive. This mod now adds quite a bit of spiciness if you combine them with the other two mods, and I really like this combination, to be honest. What it does is it adds that gang members are now able to drive cars in Night City. So when cars randomly spawn in the traffic, there is a probability that one or more gang members sit inside the car. In addition, also motorbikes are added to the traffic, and also civilians and NCPD are more aware, aggressive and reactive to what is happening in Night City. Also it adds gang relationships as well, so some gangs will interact with each other. If they taunt each other, then a fight can break out randomly somewhere in the world. And now imagine you have also reinforcements gang versus gang installed. Then they will call reinforcements and the fighting escalates even further. It is absolutely fantastic in my opinion, but of course it creates a lot of chaos. You will often see cars burning, lying on their back, cars crashing into each other, it definitely does something with Night City if you activate all the 3 mods, and it is a fantastic chaos if you like that. But keep in mind, this can definitely interrupt and annoy you in your playthrough, so maybe you don't want to escalate it this far. What I like about this mod is that the idea of one gang fighting another is now far more dynamic than with just reinforcements gang versus gang, because there you have to know where 2 gangs are pretty close to each other, or where there is an event where always 2 gangs are fighting, and from there things can escalate. In the gang versus gang mod you need a spark that starts a fire. Here with the Night City Alive mod, the whole city is on fire, because a fight can break out pretty much anywhere, and that can be a lot of fun, but it can also be highly annoying. So maybe play around with this a bit and then deactivate it when you want to do actual story progression in the game. Also, if you in traffic by accident hurt like a gang member, then also a fight will break out, they will call reinforcements, and things can also escalate. So it's not just something where you do not have to be involved, you can also easily get involved in this. As said, you can also of course just use this mod Night City Alive and don't use the reinforcement mods. That is also definitely possible. One thing I should mention here at the end is that Night City Alive is a red mod. As a result, it is not always ideal to install it with Vortex, so it maybe install it manually. For me it worked, installing it over Vortex, so it's definitely possible, but if you have trouble with it, maybe try installing it manually. Also, if there's a patch, usually red mods sometimes take some time to be updated. Also, Night City Alive is not compatible with the NPC version of the SPO body mod. It would still work with the V version of that mod though. But can you escalate this even further? And yes, you can with They Will Remember. And I have to admit, this is also sometimes a bit much for me, because if you're not careful, this turns the game into a war zone. They Will Remember adds a reputation, retaliation, relationships and disguise system to the game. So now, if you kill too many scavs, they will remember you, and they will be hostile on sight if they see you. In addition, inter-gang relationships are also spiced up a little bit. On the description page there is a little table where you can see which gangs are friends and which gangs are enemies. And guess what? Most gangs are enemies. On top of that, you can also disguise yourself as a gang member, and then depending on the gang relationships you will also be attacked or not. There's a whole disguise system in this mod, so you can disguise yourself and then the gang members, even if they are hostile, potentially won't recognize you, and you can move through the streets in peace for some time until you get recognized. In addition, time moves gangs back to a neutral stance towards you, so they forget what you did a few days ago, and that is pretty much needed, otherwise the game would become almost unplayable at a certain point, because sometimes you have to do missions deep in the turf of, let's say, the Valentinos or the Tiger Claws, and you just get constantly attacked everywhere. In addition, there's also a mod menu entry, and you have tons of options to adjust everything. There's even a save control mode that is by default activated, and it prevents this mod from working in side quests and gigs. But you can also deactivate that if you want. This mod definitely wants to encourage the player to take a more stealthy approach, and when moving through the city to blend in and not be too suspicious and so on. So it's very cool and a very complex mod. As with all the other mods, definitely check the description page and read a little bit into it, because they describe quite well what you're getting into here. But for this mod showcase, I can just say this adds a lot of chaos if you are not careful. What I really like about this combination of mods, which I call the Chaos package, is that it really adds this chaos to the world, and it makes it in a strange way feel more alive. Like, not everything suddenly is predictable, and you often get random events basically in the city that can happen anywhere and break out if you're not careful. If you're looking for spicing up the open world aspect a little bit, and you really want to be in a dystopian city where gangs have so much power and control, and are consistently fighting under each other and with the police, then this is such a cool addition to the game in my opinion. But it is also not a package for everyone. These mods are also compatible with Dark Future as far as I'm aware, but then things would become really grim, I think. I hope you enjoyed this mod showcase. If so, press the like button, subscribe and let me know in the comments if you want more, because I still have tons of other mods installed for another mod showcase video. Maybe you also have some mod recommendations, feel free to post them in the comments. I updated my mod list as well. You find it in the description, and I also created a Nexus Mods Collection, though that still needs some work, I guess. All links are in the description. Huge shoutouts to all my supporters with YouTube memberships, Twitch subs, those on Patreon, or those who gave me a tip. Thank you, much appreciated. Again, thank you for watching and goodbye.